My life's been very different. My life's been very challenging, but my life's been very rewarding. Now, losing your eyesight or being told that you're going to lose your eyesight at the age of 12, it's something that you don't understand. It's something that you don't agree with, and it's something that you can't really embrace because it's that intimidating, and you're going to be taken out of the world that you guys are in into the world that I'm now in. So to actually be faced with that at the age of 9, 10, and it actually happening in a 16-week period at the age of 12, it was a fantastic start for my life because I was on the verge of becoming a professional footballer. And people say to me, am I bitter? Am I frustrated with society and life because I wasn't being given that opportunity? And I say, no, I'm not, because the only guarantee you have in your life is life itself, and it's up to us to determine and decide what it is that we want to do with our lives and what it is that we're going to do with our lives. But being faced with that cross barrier, if you like, in being a sighted person for 12 years and now being visually impaired for the last 40 years, at that point in your life you can't make a decision because you don't actually know what your life's going to be. So there was a little bit of resentment, there was a lot of why me, there was a lot of emotion going on, not just from my own point of view, but from my parents' point of view, and with me being a parent and now understanding what my parents must have gone through, seeing me standing at my bedroom window crying my eyes out when they dropped me off at boarding school on a Sunday and driving away and leaving me stood there in floods of tears. Now, they had to do that because the place I was at was the right place for me to rebuild and reassess my life and move myself forward. Now, for them to have to do that, it was very emotional for them, and it broke their hearts like it would break my heart if I had to do it to either Megan or to either Katie. So, I think as you grow up understanding the disability and understanding what you need to make sure that this disability doesn't disable you, I think it puts you in a good place. And to be working with guys like yourself who are actually looking at breaking those barriers down and creating those opportunities and giving visually impaired people in the Southwest that confidence that actually the only thing that stops you doing anything is yourselves, it's a great place to be in, and it's a great place to be working from, and we've got a platform to really make a huge difference and not just talk about the difference that we make. So, for me, losing my sight, the lessons that I've learned as a result of that happening are huge. But you have to start somewhere. And for me to be taken away from home and put in a school for the visually impaired, I was fully sighted when I went there, near as damn it. A lot of the kids were congenitally blind, so in the mornings I'd help them get dressed and read their mail to them, help them around the school. I was captain of the football team, captain of the cricket team. So as far as I was concerned, everything was at that time not that difficult for me. However, having been there for 3 years and the school being at the foot of the Malvern Hills, I came down to classes one morning. My teacher said to me, "You don't look very well today, Steve." And I said, "I think it might be something to do with this weather." She said, "The weather? Why the weather?" I said, "Well, all I can see today is like this heavy mist coming down like the start of fog." And she said to me, "Well, that's a little bit worrying, especially today because it's a nice bright day outside with high cloud and the sun shines out." So she took my hand and walked me up to surgery. My mum and dad were called into school and we were all rushed off to hospital. Then 16 weeks later, I was totally blind. So to be faced with that at that age, and society and the perception of society at that time was that really the only thing I was going to do was make baskets and listen to Radio 4 and have Meals on Wheels. However, I'd got parents that didn't want that for me. I had parents that told me from day one, the only thing that stops you doing anything, Steve, is yourself. It's up to you and it's up to us to determine what it is that you want to do and support you in moving yourselves forward. And with the aid of the school that I was at, who then taught me how to cook and wash and iron my clothes and how to use a white stick and read and write Braille, I'd got all those social skills that I needed to be an independent person when I finished off at school. Added to that, Aston Villa, my club, were very, very supportive in that they designed a football for me, which was audible. It got ball bearings and rice and peas and stones inside it. It sounded a bit like a baby's rattle, to be honest with you. But it was that, with the support from home, the support from school, the support from the club, I found my feet in many respects, excuse the pun, because that ball gave me that confidence and that self-belief that actually I could do something that I never thought I was going to do again. And then shortly after that, I went and set a 100 metres world record for a junior in a time of 12.2 seconds. So that treadmill of change that I was now on was taking place. Those foundations were getting stronger, and my confidence and my belief in myself was also getting stronger. So now I was a completely different person 3 or 4 years down the line to the one that I was when I lost my sight at the age of 12. I finished off at school being told the only thing that I was fit for was making baskets, weaving, tuning pianos, fixing bikes, working in a soap factory. And they told me if that didn't work out for me, I could always sell boxes of matches on the street corner. Well, Steve Cunningham's never sold a box of matches on the street corner. I then went off to Royal National College for the Blind in Hereford, and I got a business degree. I was there for 3 years. I was the captain of the college football team, and we won the cup every year that we played in, and we won all the leagues that we played in. Our greatest rivals, however, was a team from Manchester called Northern Sports. And we turned up at this tournament this one morning in Manchester, only to find that the Manchester team had brought their own eye doctor along to test my eyesight because they thought I could see. And at half time, we were playing them in the final, and it was 0-0. And their captain came over to me and he said, "Steve, if you don't wear a blindfold in the second half, we're not going to play you." So I put this blindfold on and I went out and scored a second half hat-trick. So I think it proves that if you have a confidence and a belief in yourself and in your team or whatever it is that you're doing, really, things like that are only going to make you stronger and more determined. And I think that's one of the lessons that I learned early, was that if you're good at something or you have an ability at something, you will always be questioned, and that doesn't matter whether you're an athlete, as we've seen with Lord Cohen and everything that's going on at the minute, or a footballer, or an exception in business. You know, if you've got an ability which is different to anybody else's ability, you will always be questioned. And I think my ability as a footballer was questioned because they thought I could see. It's not that I could see, it's just that I'd got that raw ability and that raw talent to do something exceptional. So football really was the real foundations for me, for my rehabilitation. I finished off at college. I worked for the Child Advisory and Psychological Service in Birmingham. That was my first job. I moved from the Birmingham Education Department to Banbury in Oxfordshire, and I started working for Barclays Bank, started as a telephonist, moved into customer services and finished off as the first blind mortgage specialist. I captained the England blind football team for 20 years. I was a member of the Great Britain Athletics team in 1998, and I met one of our all-time sprinters in a lift, and I shook this gentleman's hand. I hadn't a clue who he was. And he said to me, "Would you like to join me for breakfast?" And I said, "I'd love to." I said, "Do you mind if I ask who you are?" He said, "Yes, my name's Carl Lewis." So I had dinner at breakfast with Carl Lewis and Butch Reynolds and a few of the other American athletes. So, and I think when people talk about equality and discrimination and the things that we need, that we know that we need to have to do, I think sport really was that parallel whereby, you know, they looked at the ability, not at the disability. And I think through 2012 happening, I think, you know, there's been a huge swing towards the promotion of disabled sport and disabled people in employment as well, but we can talk about that another day.
Yeah.
But so I then was at Barclays Bank, as I say, for 15 years. I got married. I've got two adorable daughters, Megan and Katie. As I say, I captained the England blind football team for 20 years. I've done my athletics, stuff like handicap of golf for 14. But as a boy, my real dream and ambition and passion was that I was going to captain the England football team and walk out in front of 100,000 spectators at Wembley and drive fast cars. While I was at the bank, I got friendly with one of the bank managers upstairs, and he called me up this one morning. He said, "Steve, do you fancy doing some fundraising?" I said, "Yeah, as long as we do it in aid of Guide Dogs for the Blind, for obvious reasons." He said, "Yeah, we could do that. Have a think about what we could do." So the first little challenge we worked on was that we did a tandem bike ride from Guide Dogs for the Blind in Leamington Spa to Royal National College for the Blind in Hereford, where I did my business diploma. It took us 7 hours, and we raised just over £1,000 for the charity. The following year, he said, right, what should we do this year then? I said, I fancy doing some ice skating. He said, ice skating? He said, you're bad enough on the back of a bike. Can you skate? I said, I can, but I can't stop very well. But what you've got to try and picture is you've got these two grown men on a Saturday afternoon holding hands, skating around Oxford High Street, and you try to explain to people you're doing it for charity, they're really going to believe you, aren't they? And that's what we did to raise another £1,000. But as a boy, my ambition and dream was that I was going to captain the England football team and drive fast cars. So when Steve come down to me and said, right, Steve, we need to do something really different and really unique to finish off these hat-trick of events we've been working on. I said, I'm on it. He said, what? I said, I want to do a sponsored drive. He said, and where on earth are we going to do that then? He said, so we've gone from riding a bike to skating to sitting in a racing car. So you got it. I said, we'll do it at Silverstone because that's not far from here. He said, they'll never let us do it there. I said, at the end of the day, if you don't ask the question, we're never going to know the answer. So I wrote this letter to Graham Lakegrange, who was the circuit manager at Silverstone, and this letter went along the lines of, I'd like to come and do a drive in aid of Guide Dogs for the Blind. Problem one is, I can't drive. Problem two is, I can't see. Steve, like, they're never going to reply to that. I said, they will, and they did, and had my first driving lesson on the 14th of February 1988. We did 3 laps of the circuit at Silverstone. The maximum speed I reached was 120 miles an hour, and we raised just over £10,000 for the charity.
Wow.
The 90s were a great time of my life. As I say, 1993 I got married. In 94 I captained the England blind football team in the first European Football Championships in Barcelona. So to represent your country, it is a truly fantastic honour. But to score in your debut and beat the French 1-0, well, it didn't really get much better than that. Obviously then I had the girls, and that was a very challenging time for myself and for Megan and for Katie. But my life really changed, and I think people generally, whether you have a disability or not, your life does change, and you get to that crossroads in your life where you have to make a decision, or you have to say to yourself, what does this mean to me? What is it I'm being told, or what is this opportunity going to enable me to do? And that's the point that I was in when I came back from Brazil in '98, and I sat in our local pub this one Friday night, and this guy came in. He says, Steve, I'm glad I've seen you. I says, what is that then? He said, I've just seen this blind chap on TV set a world blind land speed record. I said, what was he driving? He said, a Ford Cosworth, and he did 132 miles an hour. The guy I was having a drink with is a national rally driving instructor, and Pete said to me, Steve, we could do something like that if you wanted to. He said, but my main concern is, can you drive? I said, well, actually, you don't have to be concerned, I can. He said, I thought you were going to tell me that somehow. I said, but if we're going to do it, I'd like to do it in aid of Guide Dogs for the Blind, and I'd like to do it in an XJ220 Jaguar sports car. He said, I bet you would. So anyway, we wrote a letter to Jaguar in Coventry, and they agreed to meet us at Bruntingthorpe in Leicestershire. And they brought 2 Jags along. They brought an XJR and an XJ220. And what I had to do to them was prove that I could drive this XJR sufficiently well before they'd let me loose in this XJ220. Anyway, been doing some testing for about half an hour, and there was these 3 guys from Central TV there, and they said to me, oh, Steve, do you mind if I get in the back of the car and do some filming with you? I said, no, of course you can. So you got these 3 guys with their cameras and audio equipment in the back of this Jag. Off we go down the track. And they thought it was really funny being driven by a blind man. Well, they thought it was funny at 50 miles an hour. At 100 miles an hour, it's a bit quieter in the back. At 120 miles an hour, it's considerably quieter. At 160 miles an hour, I thought they'd all passed out. Anyway, we pulled this car to a standstill, and these 3 guys fired out the back of this Jag like champagne corks coming out of a bottle of champagne. And I said to Pete, I thought they wanted to do some interviews. He said, you're going to have to give them a minute. I said, why? He said, one's green, one's white. There's a chap over there being sick under a bush. Anyway, they came back and started these interviews, and this guy said to me, he said, we must be barking mad, he said, to be driven by a blind man at 160 miles an hour. I said, how was it for you? He said, I don't know, I had my eyes shut. I said, how was it for me then? I said, I was in the same situation that you're in. Unfortunately, they withdrew their car sponsorship. So then I wrote to Chrysler, and Chrysler came up with the V10 Dodge Viper. That project itself generated over £5.5 million worth of media coverage. The maximum speed I did in the Viper was 176.3 miles an hour, and Guide Dogs for the Blind had a donation for £30,000. Barclays Bank were my employees at that time, so they had £5.5 million worth of media coverage as well, but obviously it wasn't enough for them, because when I went back to work, it's a brown envelope on my desk, and they'd made me redundant. A negative situation in many people's eyes. In my eyes, it was an opportunity for me now to do what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I took my redundancy money and I converted my garage into an office. I set up my own company, which is Blind Vision. The website's blindvision.tv, and Blind Vision was set up to run the Hat Trick Challenge. So I'd done the first leg of the challenge. I then went off to get to Poole to get my bat boat. Now the difference between the boat and the car was that in the car I got an intercom system, and Pete would be saying left a bit, right a bit, which sounds about basic and elementary when you're doing speeds of 200 miles an hour. But those corrections need to be spot on, because if they're not, you're into a spin, and we're all aware of the consequences thereafter. But with the boat, I'd got this GPS system, I'd got this electronic vest on, and I got vibrating pads on the back of both of my hands. So if I go across the water on a straight line, I got no vibrations in my hands whatsoever. If I veer right to centre, I got a vibration in my left hand. If I veer left to centre, I got a vibration in my right hand. It was a great bit of kit, but it didn't tell you there was a boat or a pier in your way. So I had to have somebody sighted with me in the boat at all times. That project generated £12.5 million worth of media coverage. The charities that we supported that year were Guide Dogs for the Blind, Dogs for Disabled and Blind Children. The maximum speed I did was a land speed of 230 miles an hour, 230 miles an hour, missing the overall world record, which is held by a fully sighted Norwegian by 800ths of a second. And that's because we had an oil leak in the engine. Yeah. But the ultimate challenge for me was to become the first blind person in history to fly an aeroplane around the UK in 2004. We had a piece of software flown in from America called a voice-activated interface. And what that did was it converted all the information off the control panel that a sighted pilot would see into speech for me. So it would tell me how high we were flying, was on the climb, was on a descent, fuel, oil, pressures, ETA at the next airports, where there's everything that a sighted pilot had got, I'd got the same information. The difficulty I had, though, was it wasn't the only piece of information that I'd got, because I got my speech talking to me, I got my co-pilot talking to me, air traffic control talking to me, and the other pilots in the sky at the same time. And I needed to learn quickly which piece of information it was that I needed to use to keep me safe and keep everybody else safe at the same time. Brilliant. It was a 5-day project. Day 1 was Biggin Hill to Newcastle. Day 2 was Newcastle to Glasgow. Day 3 was Glasgow to Belfast. Day 4 was Belfast to Cardiff. And Day 5 was Cardiff back into London. That project generated over £17.5 million worth of media coverage. The charities that we supported that year was the Royal National Institute for the Blind and the British Deaf Association, and they had a joint donation from Blind Vision and Orange for £150,000.
Amazing. Thank you, Steve, for sharing amazing experiences to do all of that. Brilliant.
And people say to me, why do I do it? Yeah. The reasons that I do it was because decisions were being made for me on my disability, not on my actual ability. Yeah. So it's about taking responsibility, about taking control, and demonstrating really what it is you can do with your life.
That's an amazing message, yeah.
We just really appreciate you coming up to share all of that with us.